For years, there were murmurs about certain photographs, images never meant for public eyes, files that seemed to disappear the moment anyone tried to trace them. According to sources, these were not ordinary pictures at all. They allegedly showed Meghan Markle in proximity to Jeffrey Epstein. Images that, if authentic, would challenge the carefully curated story of who she was before royalty entered her life. For a long time, it appeared these files had been erased completely. Licensing agencies refused access. Archives returned nothing. Even major photo libraries reportedly placed these images behind restricted tags, effectively sealing them off. But then, something changed. Somewhere, someone stopped guarding those files. The images didn't explode into the spotlight immediately. They slipped back quietly, appearing here and there. And suddenly, what many believed was buried began staring back into view. That is where this story truly begins. Not with a royal wedding or a fairy tale romance, but with the images they failed to keep hidden. Because once a secret escapes, it doesn't move. Slowly, it accelerates. As the photos resurfaced, old voices echoed back from within the same elite world Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell once controlled. One of those voices reportedly belonged to Maxwell herself, speaking from prison, with nothing left to protect and even less to lose. Transcripts claim she referenced Meghan's Hollywood years, hinting at connections that were overlooked once Meghan became a duchess. Maxwell wasn't alone. Years earlier, Virginia Roberts Giuffre had reportedly mentioned Meghan's name as well. During preparations for her civil case against Prince Andrew, her legal team allegedly considered calling Meghan as a witness, believing she lived in the US and could be summoned. Why consider her at all? According to those claims, she had been socially close enough to Prince Andrew to potentially hear or observe things. They also believed her past environment overlapped the edges of Epstein's circle. None of this suggested guilt, but in investigations, proximity matters, awareness matters. And when two individuals from inside the same shadowed world mention the same name, investigators listen even if the public doesn't. Once the images returned to circulation, those old whispers grew louder. For the first time, the narrative shifted. It was no longer just about Meghan the Duchess, but Meghan the mystery. Researchers began noticing something else, a repeating pattern that extended beyond Britain. Meghan was not the first woman to rise quietly, marry into royalty, and later face questions about past associations tied to Epstein's world. According to newly released files, other European royal figures had crossed paths with Epstein years before entering royal families. Lives once lived under the radar resurfaced to haunt palaces later. The pattern was unsettlingly simple: women moving through elite social circles, later stepping into royal courts only for old shadows to follow them inside. This is where the story becomes larger than gossip, becomes a blueprint. With the whispers now exposed, attention shifted to Meghan's pre-royal years, the years before fame and palace gates. She lived quietly but not modestly. Sources claim her world during this time was far more elite than the struggling actress narrative suggested. In 2015, she was reportedly flown to Istanbul for a Soho House opening. Not as a star, but as someone insiders called a social presence. She wasn't the headline. She was background, but the background was filled with billionaires, investors, and power players who treated global cities like playgrounds. This wasn't isolated. Around the same period, Meghan was frequently traveling to New York, often during the same windows Prince Andrew was in the city. At the time, no one questioned it. No one knew her name yet. Even her suits. Co-stars allegedly wondered how she funded such travel. Business class flights, luxury hotels, elite company far beyond a cable actress's salary. On the surface, it looked glamorous. Behind the scenes, it hinted at something deeper: a network, a lifestyle, connections, shaping the next phase of her life. The world didn't notice her then, but the people around her did. To understand how she entered these circles, sources point to two key moments. The first was a 2006 Hamptons party attended by figures like Harvey Weinstein. Meghan was there, young, unknown, no headlines, no press mentions. Yet she stood inside rooms most aspiring actresses never reach. The second moment came in February 2016. The same month, she later claimed to have met Prince Harry, according to a former co. That month also aligned with her alleged attendance at a Yacht Week event. Yacht Weeks were known for blending businessmen, models, entertainers, and introductions made through networks, not chance. Whether this was where paths crossed remains unknown. What is known is this marked the final chapter of her hidden life, just before everything changed. If there is one voice that cuts through the glamour surrounding Meghan's past, it is John Lefevre, a man who spent years organizing high-end parties and private events for some of the wealthiest people on the planet. He wasn't speculating from the outside or repeating rumors he heard secondhand. He spoke as someone who had lived inside that environment, someone who understood how elite social worlds truly operate when the cameras are gone and discretion is currency. According to his claims, Meghan was well known in those circles as what insiders referred to as a yacht girl. Someone who moved comfortably through exclusive social events and private luxury gatherings. These were not casual cocktail parties. These were invitation-only environments aboard yachts, in penthouses, and at private villas where access itself meant status. Lefebvre suggested she stood far closer to that world than the public ever realized. He described her as being one missed DM and a diamond necklace away from becoming connected to figures like Joe Low, a statement meant to illustrate proximity, not accusation. In his view, Meghan wasn't an outsider brushing against elite society. She was already inside it. And then, according to him, something curious happened. After she married into royalty, her old Dubai-related photos quietly vanished from the internet. Images that once circulated simply disappeared, scrubbed clean as though someone had deliberately erased every trace of a life that no longer fit the new royal narrative. Lefebvre didn't present this as gossip or speculation. He spoke with the confidence of someone who had seen how reputations are managed, histories rewritten, and digital footprints erased when power and image collide. His words painted a picture of Meghan's early life, not as a simple struggle through Hollywood auditions, but as a carefully navigated journey through secretive, wealthy, and influential social networks. Networks that don't advertise themselves and don't leave paper trails but always leave witnesses. And once those witnesses speak, the image begins to fracture as more threads from Meghan's past surfaced. The story shifted into the legal realm where speculation gives way to documentation and silence becomes telling. When Virginia Roberts Giuffre prepared her civil case against Prince Andrew, her legal team combed through years of events, relationships, and social environments connected to Epstein's orbit. Their focus wasn't just actions, it was presence, patterns, and proximity. According to source claims, Meghan Markle's name emerged during that review, not as a defendant, not as someone accused of wrongdoing, but as a potential deposition witness. 3 factors reportedly placed her on the radar. First, she lived in the United States, meaning the court had jurisdiction to call her. Second, she had allegedly been socially close to Prince Andrew during certain periods. Third, and perhaps most significant, her earlier social environment was believed to overlap parts of Epstein's wider network. In legal strategy, that overlap matters. Witnesses aren't chosen because they are guilty, but because they may have seen, heard, or understood patterns others missed. This wasn't tabloid chatter, it was a legal team preparing one of the most scrutinized cases of the modern era. They weren't searching for drama. They were searching for context, leverage, and missing links. The world never saw that deposition happen, but the fact that her name was even considered reveals how close Meghan's past came to stepping directly into a courtroom. Some stories don't need to be told publicly to carry weight. Sometimes, consideration alone says enough. Inside palace walls, silence is never accidental. Silence is strategy. According to insiders, the royal family had long been aware of the risks surrounding Meghan's earlier associations. They weren't ignorant of her past, they simply understood the consequences of its surfacing. To the public, Meghan was presented as a fresh start, a modern symbol, a humanitarian actress turned duchess. But institutions like the monarchy survive not by rewriting history, but by controlling exposure. When the resurfaced images and long-buried files appeared, scrutiny didn't fall solely on Meghan. It fell on the House of Windsor itself. Because every royal scandal becomes a national crisis, and every revelation threatens the stability of the crown at that moment. The royal household allegedly faced a crossroads: continue shielding Meghan, or quietly step back and allow the story to unfold on its own. What followed wasn't defense. It wasn't support. It was something far more revealing. A silence so complete it suggested acceptance, as though the outcome was already understood, and resistance would only make it worse. Every story reaches a point where the room grows quiet, and the truth steps forward uninvited. This was that moment.